What's up guys, today we're going to be speedrunning and ranking 10 plus new IEMs, and starting off we have the new Myer Sla3 SLA3, and this is a contender for one of the best sets at around $100. It's rocking a 1DD 3BA hybrid with well implemented custom drivers that's not going to affect the timbre much, and I'm going to put this right up there with the Novas, the Super Mix 4, the EM6L, and the Explorer, since these are a good side grade to those sets. The Sla3's overall sound is well balanced, it's slightly bassy, it has good dynamics when it comes to the vocals and the treble, and it has good technical performance on top. And even though this is an all-rounder, the extra low end plus the, what I like to call it, the Bart Simpson upper mids, brings forth an extra sense of dynamic contrast to the sound that you don't really get on other IEMs at around $100, and it makes it more quote-unquote unique sounding. The tuning is more engaging, it's funner, and it's not as smooth as the Nova, Super Mix, EM6L, stuff like that. So if you're looking for the smoothest playback, then those are still going to be smoother when it comes to the upper mids and the treble. They're going to sound more balanced and quote-unquote more neutral, more correct. However, because their tuning is also safer, this also means that those sets are going to be less unique and dynamic and fun. At mid volume, the Bart Simpson upper mids on the Myers bring forth that extra bit of contrast to kind of make things more musical without sounding too harsh or too peaky at mid volume. Vocals are extended, they're open, but they're also powerful enough. It's full. The SLA3 performs pretty good on both male and female artists, although it does lean slightly more towards the female vocals because of the Bart Simpson upper mids, but it never gets too shouty or fatiguing when it's at mid volume listening. Low-end wise, these are also pretty punchy. The sub bass is rumbly, the drums, the bass guitars have a nice slam and nice pull to the strings, to the notes. They don't get in the way, they're well controlled, and the impact is also engaging enough. Of course, these aren't going to be a bass set, but for most people you're going to find these to be very enjoyable when it comes to the bass. It's engaging, it's impactful, the texture is good, and it's better than the Novas and the Super Mix 4 because it does feel more textured, it feels deeper and a little bit fuller, since it has less emphasis in the upper mids. So basically, if you're looking for an all-rounder and you found the Novas and the Super Mix 4 to be a bit too boring, then the SLA3 fits nicely as a good side grade to those. It's slightly less technical than the Super Mix 4, but I do find these to be more, I guess, musical and more dynamic, more enjoyable tuning wise to me. Then versus the EM6L, the Myer is cleaner, it's less warm, it's less bright, it's not going to be as smooth as the EM6L because of the Bart Simpson upper mids. It trades off that warmer, smoother sound for a cleaner, more sub-bass focused, more dynamic presentation. And on tracks like Model, for example, the SLA3 can get a bit too energetic when trying to crank them up. These are a mid-volume set, so if you're looking for something that scales better, the Explorer will still be better in that regards. It's less energetic, can crank it up more. It's more bassy, it has a more like a laid-back presentation to the sound. But if you listen at mid-volume, then the SLA3 is a great pick that's going to work for lots of genres. It's a good dynamic all-rounder, and it also has one of the best packaging and plating at around $100. So yeah, I'll recommend these. Then moving on, we have its older brother, the Myer CK2V, which is a tribrid, 1DD, 4 BAs with 2 nulls and 2 planars. And basically the CK2V is just a better and cheaper version of the Brain Dance for 180 USD. This is what the Brain Damage should have been. For starter, the low end texture is better. It doesn't have a scoop. It's not as thin as the Brain Dance. There's also no upper mids, treble tilt that made the Brain Dance to be too bright and too artificial, which is a lifesaver. So the overall tuning is just fuller, it's more natural, and the vocals have more clarity to them as well, which makes them a better version of the Brain Dance in my opinion. Now the CK2V is still a planar, and it does still have some of that planar sizzle, but it is not overdone. It reminds me of the treble presentation on the Dusk, which I think is just enough if you like that sizzle, but you're not like going overboard and going too artificial like Brain Damage territory. The CK2V's overall sound is balanced, but with a slight treble boost. It's slightly bright leaning, I would say, giving you that sense of air and micro details. It's slightly bright, but it's still well balanced because of the fuller bass. The technical performance is also great for $180. I would put this around the same technical performance as the Super Mix 4, the Hype Force, the T Pro levels, which is pretty good. And overall, it's slightly behind the Brain Dance, but sound wise, I would take these over the Brain Dance any day of the week, and it's also more than 2 times less. Now compared to the full 5+2, the CK2V is better balanced, it's more enjoyable at mid volume, the low end slams harder, there's more rumble to the sub bass, and the bass notes just go deeper. The vocals are also clear, they pop out a bit more, they have a bit more extension, a bit more power, and it still gives you that treble extension you get on the 5+2, but it's just better when it comes to the vocals and the bass. So basically the CK2V is a better version of the 5+2 as well as the Brain Dance, and it's also cheaper than the 5+2 and a lot cheaper than the Brain Dance as well, with 2 branded BAs. Now versus the Odysseys, I would still take the Odysseys because the extra scaling gives it that unique immersion that not many sets have at around its price, plus like that cleaner like presentation and layering. It's also more natural when it comes to timbre, it has slightly better low end texture, but really it does come down to the volume and your personal tuning preference. If you're looking for a set at mid volume, the CK2V is better with more treble air, a little bit more sizzlier, but if you're looking for a more immersive, clean sound that scales better, then the Odysseys are still the GOAT at $200. As for vocal-centric sets, the EPZ P50 and the Volume S will both be better when it comes to vocals. They're just more vocal focused, there's no extra air and sizzle, both have better timbre with the Volume S being better for higher volumes and the P50 being better when it comes to mid-volume vocals, and overall they just work better when it comes to ballads and vocal-centric tracks. But all in all, the CK2V is pretty nice for what it does. It's a slightly bright-leaning sound, the price undercuts the Brain Dance by a lot, by 2 times more, and essentially just a better version of the Brain Dance. So if you're looking for something that's like slightly sizzly, balanced, and pretty like clean and pretty good when it comes to the overall technical performance, then I would recommend trying these CK2Vs. Now on the other hand, I can't say the same thing for the SEEAUDIO YUME 4. This is a set that I just can't really recommend at retail price of $200 because it should really be more, like no more than $100. It's a 2 BA set using custom drivers. The overall sound of the YUME 4 is very neutral, it's clean, it's basically a straight line, and you can kind of think of it as a cleaner version of the Explorer. Both are like scaling IEMs, they scale pretty good, but the difference is that the YUME 4 is double the price of the Explorer with only 2 custom BAs for $200. Do you see the problem now? Mine also came with a channel imbalance, but luckily I was able to fix it with PECDB's channel imbalance feature, so shout out to them. But yeah, this doesn't do anything more than the Explorer, and certainly not 2 times more. Yes, it scales well, the layering, the resolution at high volume is decent. However, for $200 more, I can just get the Odysseys, and it's better than the YUME 4 in like every way possible. You also have the SLA3, the Super Mix 4, the Novas, the M6L, you know, Chopin. There are a lot of IEMs at around $200, and like it's just not very competitive. Like the IEM itself isn't bad. Again, it's very neutral, scales great with a like relaxing and clean listen. However, the pricing just doesn't make sense. If you can get the YUME 4 for maybe around like $100, I would say sure, go for it, but past that there are just way better options. So because of that, I'm gonna put it in the maybe category if you can get a good deal on these. But moving on, we have a KZ IEM, actually the ZENITH, and this has been getting some hype for its dynamic drivers, so you know, I thought I would review it. And for a single DD, the ZENITH is actually pretty good. Now sound wise, the ZENITH is an all-rounder and is essentially a cleaner version of the EW300, but not as smooth and detailed when it comes to the treble. It does feel a bit peaky at times since you just can't get buttery smooth treble with one single dynamic driver, but it's overall still enjoyable and it's pretty musical on the right track. Depending on the song, the ZENITH can either be a mid or a high volume set. For example, on certain tracks like Model that has a lot of cymbals and energy, the ZENITH doesn't scale as well as some other stuff like the Explorer, but on most songs you can crank these quite a bit, like on slower rock tracks. The timbre is also just very natural, it's DD, the bass texture is great, the slam and no weight is satisfying, vocals pop out with good clarity, it's not overly husky, and you know, overall vocal timbre is not thin either, it's just good. But most importantly, the layering and separation for a single DD is very well done. There's a good sense of natural space and not that, you know, over boosted, airy kind of like treble feeling. And for $50, the tech on the ZENITH punches around like 80 to 100 bucks. So value wise, it is a good IEM. Now versus the clean is still smoother, it's bassier when it comes to the overall playback. It doesn't have the same, I guess, level of layering and separation as the ZENITH. To me, the ZENITH is more technical and also a little bit more dynamic in the sound. But I think the clean is still a good side grade if you want a smoother treble presentation and just more warmness to the overall sound. So even though though the ZENITH is a pretty good 1DD IEM, it's not gonna outcompete hybrids and tribrids like the EM6L, the EW300, which do have a dedicated driver when it comes to just like how smooth the treble is, or even the clean. The clean is also slightly smoother than the ZENITH. Overall, value-wise, I do still recommend these, even though it is KZ. And knowing KZ, these are gonna probably go on sale for a lot lower, so you gotta give credit where it's due when it comes to value. Then after the ZENITH, we have the TWISTURA Sigma with a bullet style design, and these are actually pretty unique sound wise for what you're getting at around 80 bucks. They have a neutral, warm leaning sound signature, but with an emphasis when it comes to the vocals. The vocals are very forward, they favor the female vocals more, but still sound very good for male artists as well. And the Sigma fits great when it comes to ballads, acoustic, like slower indie tracks. The Sigma actually reminds me of a mini RS5, even though obviously it's not as refined. The RS5 is still much better, it's smoother, it's more technical, better air and resolution. They're reminiscent of the RS5, and it's like 5 to 7 times less at 80 bucks. So if you want a taste of the RS5, then these would be a pretty solid option. Now, this doesn't mean it's perfect, because on certain tracks, the Sigma, when it comes to vocals, it can get a bit nasally, a bit shouty because of the extra 3K boost, and I wouldn't recommend these for hip-hop, pop, EDM, J-pop, stuff like that. Anything that needs more low-end or less vocal gain, it's not gonna sound as good on the Sigmas. And the treble extension also needs work because the Sigma just isn't very competitive when it comes to tech. However, I will still put the Sigmas in the maybe category, because again, you're still getting a mini RS5 for 80 bucks. Yes, it's not the best value when it comes to technical performance. It's a very niche vocal set, but at least it's a unique enough to warrant a purchase, and just not another Harman all-rounder for like around 80 bucks. And then lastly, we got the Queen of Audio, ADONIS New, and the MIMOSA. And I just keep this simple and quick. Avoid these. I don't recommend them unless you can find the ADONIS New like under $100 and the MIMOSA for around like 50-60 bucks. Like, don't get me wrong, the plate design and the overall accessories are fire, but sound wise, the timbre is just like, it's wonky on both of them. It's kind of unrefined, it's peaky, the vocals are gone, it's a bit too recessed, doesn't feel fully extended, you can't really crank either of them, but they also sound like you're listening to a can underwater at mid volume, so it's kind of just like in a weird spot. And when it comes to the technical performance, both are also underwhelming at their price range of $200 and $100. At 200 bucks, you can get so much like IEMs, like Super Mix 4, Nova, Odysseys. Like, I can list so many. And at 100, similarly, you can get EM6L, you can get EW300, and also just low end wise, the ADONIS New feels like I'm getting hit by a wall of bass with little texture. Like, it's essentially a worse version of the Explorer, because it doesn't scale that well because of the peakier treble, and then it also gets outclassed by the Odysseys, the Super Mix 4, and the EW300, even others tech-wise for like a cheaper price. And then the MIMOSA feels like a less refined version of the EW300 with worse timbre, as the microplanar is noticeable in a bad kind of way that makes the treble feel a bit harsh and unnatural. So just check the ranking list in the description, because there are just much better options at around this price, and I would just not really recommend the MIMOSAs or the ADONIS New. But that aside, let's speed run some IEMs. I'm starting with the Volume S. These are going right up to the top tier when it comes to just the overall presentation, the sound, and if you want a like high scaling vocal set, these are it. It's essentially an RS5 at higher volumes. If you're looking for something vocal centric, these are a solid pick. Full textured, they're powerful, and they have the treble extender to back it up when you crank it up as well. So yeah, top tier. Next, we have the Tangzu Wu ZETIAN Legend, and these are just gonna be a pass for me. They're just a bit too bright, too energetic. You can't really fix the treble even with like a 300, 500 mid filter, because the mid filters helps with the upper mids. But the issue on the Wu ZETIAN Legend is that the treble, the late treble is just over boosted, it's too bright. It just sounds a bit too much, and I would unless you're a treble head, I would just probably avoid these. But I will recommend the new ET142 with the new nozzles. Basically, it gives you a very good variety from bright leaning, all-rounded to warm sounding. You just get a very good kind of presentation to the overall sound, get good variety as well. The build quality is good, the fit is also solid. It does still have a little bit of the planar, timbre when it comes to the treble, the upper mids, but overall it's pretty well done for a planar, and it gives you a lot of variety, and I would recommend it. Now, moving up to the METEORs, I don't really recommend these. I think these are overpriced because the EPZ P50 exists. They're just, a bit too much. They don't have ESTs for $500. They're not the most like full sounding. The vocals sound great at mid volume, but if you try to crank it up, it does sound too clinical. It sounds a bit shouty in the 1 to 3K region. And again, I think the EPZ P50s are just like cheaper and better tuned as well. So it has a little bit more treble air. It's fuller when it comes to the vocals, fuller when it comes to the bass. It's less shouty when it comes to 1 to 3K, and it's also like 2 times less. So Meteors, I would say pass, unless you can find these for like $250. But even then, I would say I'll go for the P50s. But speaking of the P50s, these I would recommend. These are very good when it comes to vocal presentation. It's like a benchmark for neutral, like all-rounder vocal set at around $200. I think it's around $150 to $180 now on sale. Value-wise, you're not gonna really beat this when it comes to like a neutral playback. Again, it's better than the Meteors when it comes to tonality. I think the Meteor is still a bit more natural when it comes to the planar, just like how smooth the treble is. But the P50 is still pretty natural. It doesn't like sound like a planar. Great accessories on top and very good value. So yeah, recommend it. And then finally, we have the Lecture Mystic 8, and these are going right up to the top tier category. These are like the GOAT when it comes to female vocals right now. Best I've heard so far. It's a better version of the Divas. It's fuller when it comes to male vocals, but also just as sweet and sparkly and airy when it comes to female vocals, and a little bit more detail when it comes to treble. The technical performance on the Mystic 8s are amazing as well. It's like LTD level, better than the Monarchs, better than the Brain Dance. It's a better version of the Brain Dance and the Cantor. Like the Mystic 8 basically just made the Cantor and the Brain Dance irrelevant, and the Meteor as well, because if you want like a female vocal set, these are just much better. The only nitpick would be that if you want more bass, these are just not it. They're not like a low-end centric set. It's very clean, slightly bright leaning, very focused when it comes to female vocals. And overall, the packaging, the cable is just not good for $1,000. And the case, you get a half of a case essentially. So accessory-wise, not the best, but sound-wise, one of the best female vocals that I've heard so far. But yeah, that's it for now. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the speed run, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Shout out to Rark's Cat, Dom Q, Disco Scotus, B, Urak, Mystic Spoon, Attack, Walker Standard, User, Patrick, Polly J, Mr. Gorillas, Anton Risto, Gis Seng Yun, Christopher Jackson, Name, Henry Claudia, Son of a Horse, 777ZK, Ben Thompson, Obi, Wizard, Frickalicious, Andrick, Ricardo, Tapas, Oh Really, Contain Guava Juice Gains, Shrint Buckley, Forever New, Triple Well Extended, and Chuck Norris. Thank you guys so much.